It's Mac and Perry in the place. Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry
go live to create.
Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry invite you to stay.
Hello and welcome to On Location in Lethbridge here at CASA. I'm Daniel.
Thorsten.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time to come and be with us. I'm super excited to hear your insights and your story. Before we dive into our icebreakers, why don't you just give us a really broad overview, outlook of what it is you do as an artist, Thorsten?
A broad saying, I'm a storyteller. I'm a storyteller, and I use different medias from music, photo, and video as well. Most of it based in words. I'm a novelist, and any form of expression, but painting and expressive dance.
Yeah, so we won't ask you to get up and dance.
No, you don't want
it. Sounds good. Awesome, sweet. Yeah, so we'll dive into our first icebreaker game, which is just a bit of trivia. How are you with trivia, typically?
Abysmally bad.
Oh, no. That's totally okay. Our questions for you are based on Lethbridge, but if you don't got them, that's totally okay. So I'll just dive in. My first piece of Lethbridge trivia for you is, Lethbridge had a system of streetcars for how many years before switching to motor buses in 1947? How many years? A, 33 years, B, 15 years, C, 35 years, or D, 1 year?
35.
35? You got it! That's amazing. Yeah. Bad at trivia. Come on. No, that's awesome. And I will throw it to Michael for another piece of Lethbridge trivia for you.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought it was the one in Montana, but then I go with Tofino. Really interesting. Okay, I know in Montana it was with the biggest difference in 24 hours with temperature. That's what it was. Yeah.
Okay,
so,
okay.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
Yeah, but the
Not
East
the wind.
Coast. Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. And the best part is, I'm always excited for this bit, you have trivia for us. So I will let you read the first bit of trivia, which is a question about Michael for me to try and get right. Yeah.
For you.
Let's see how this goes.
Casa means home in Spanish. Michael is leaving soon for a trip to Spain. This will be his second time going. On the first trip, he had an adventure. A, running with the bulls in Pamplona. B, hiking to the summit of a mountain outside of Barcelona. C, hitchhiking to France. D, getting lost in the Royal Palace of Madrid.
Wow, all of those would be amazing. If it weren't the bulls, I know you do hitchhiking every now and then, and I know you love hiking. So I guess I'll go with the hiking. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yay! I got it right.
To France.
Amazing. Very cool. Awesome. And I believe you have another piece of trivia, which will be for Michael, and it is about me. So take it away.
What could it be? What could it be? Daniel worked on a project with Thorsten, me. Shot at which Lethbridge location? A, the Penny Coffee House. B, what was the Civic Eye Center? C, the London Road Market. Or D, the Galt Museum.
Wow, we know so much about each other.
Yeah, keep your friends in the loop.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, great. Thank you for going along with us there. We will move on to our next mini game, which is this or that. We'll just see what we pick and go from there. So I'll go first. Let's see what we've got. Pay for parking or risk it? What would you do, Thorsten?
I pay for parking. I'm honest, I probably would pay for parking.
Yeah.
I try to avoid it where I can, so,
Yeah.
but I would probably pay.
Super fair. I am in the same boat. Or I will try and just take the time to try and find somewhere free to park. But yeah, that's what I would do.
I also like to rather walk 3 blocks and those things. So that helps.
Right on. Awesome. I will pass this to you. See what you pull, and just give it a read.
Oh, okay. Got one. Got one. Upside down. No. 25. Camp or glam?
Camp or glamp? For myself, I would like to think camp, but I haven't done it in a very long time. So I don't know how I would fare. What would be your preference?
I liked camping in the past, but you know, if I can speak about the past, then my present is I like it comfy and I would go glamping.
That's super fair. I think I know what Michael might say, but if I throw it to you, Michael? Let's see what else we get. Our next one is number 1, tea or coffee? What's your preference?
I like to drink coffee. Yeah, I drink a lot of tea since 2 years as well, but coffee is if I would have to choose like either or, it would be definitely the coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
Like a cappuccino cortado.
Okay. Are you one of those people that like, you can drink coffee at like 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. and still go to bed? Or
well, I go to bed like 1:30, so I totally have a coffee at 8 or something.
Right on. Yeah. I think for myself, I do drink a lot more coffee nowadays, but because I'm British, I feel like I gotta go with the tea. It's just a thing. I gotta go with the tea. So yeah, yeah. And if I throw it to you, Michael, well. Where we differ. Awesome. I'll pass it back to you for our next one.
Yeah, I switched to tea entirely the times where I've been to Ireland.
Okay, yeah.
For example, it's just like
it's what they've got.
I go local if I'm somewhere else. I don't have that. New or familiar?
New or familiar? See, I do feel like I am a bit of a creature of habit, but like as an artist, I think there's got to be some sense of new there, you know, even just being creative. There's like finding new things or new to me things. So, yeah, how about you?
Yeah, the same thing. There are certain things, creature of habit, definitely. And for example, I don't like to search things. So as in my little office space, you know, that's how it is. It might look boring, but I don't want to start searching for a pen if I have an idea. Yeah. Otherwise, what I just mentioned, if I'm somewhere else, I like to try something new. I'm curious. I think curiosity is a great thing to have all your life through. So
yeah, nice. Awesome. We'll pick our next one. Okay, let's see what this one is. Matching or mismatching socks? Well,
I guess matching.
Matching, yeah.
although they might be different, but from a same race, have a different point. So it's kind of middle, I think. Yeah, I don't mismatch on purpose. No, I think matching. I think like that would be. I know people that mismatch, so I'm not the.
Not that, yeah. I am the same way. Mine are usually matching. I can't remember any instance in which I would have intentionally mismatched. So, yeah. Awesome. I think we'll move straight along onto our last mini game, which will be Tumbling Towers. So quick review, you can't take from the top 3 rows. And once you pull something, you're going to put it on top. And you don't have to go for the first one you touch. You can feel free to see whichever ones are loose. So I'll let you do the honors.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Oh.
You got it.
No. Oh my.
Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
this one, I think.
Nice. 24.
24.
Let's see what question we get. What have you tried that scared you?
Oh, that's a good question. What scared me? What I tried, and I didn't expect it would scare me. Huh? First thing that shoots to my mind, but that goes, of course, a little bit further back. I was surprised once that I cannot look down high buildings. So that was, but you know, like that's something you discover, you know.
Almost too late. You discover it too late.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this feels,
oh.
yeah, you know, like why? But yeah, as a, you know, as a kid, maybe you jump from a garage at highest, right? But then later you climb, and it's like, oh, this doesn't, you know, like the hands get sweaty and stuff. That would be the first that I could think of.
Yeah,
I bet there are others, but.
Yeah. Right on, yeah. I think for myself, it would just be like performing on stage. Like I still remember the first time I stepped down on stage, and it's terrifying, but I think you kind of then get acclimated to it a little bit once you do it more, but yeah, there's always still some nerves. So
yeah, and I feel like there should be always, because that's the energy. I think if it becomes too routine. But that it's funny that you bring it up, because I was really quiet as a child and not on the board in school, right? So, and I was approached by a lady that had a secondhand bookstore where I bought all my books, and I was a young man, like in my teens, right? And she's like, "You're also writing, right?" I'm like, "Me, no," right? Like, of course I was, right? And she said, "Don't you want to read something, right?" I'm like, "Me, no reading, no way." But then she talked me, and she said, like, just like my friends, we have a glass of wine, you know. It's like, okay. And so I didn't even bring the board where I put my poetry on. Stupid me just had a piece of paper like this, right? Reading my poem, and it's short. But by the end, I was so nervous that this was wet and around my fingers. So that was the nervousness of my first performance.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Oh, my gosh. I would love to hear more about that, but we're going to move on. We'll see if I knock this over. You just got to go for it. There we go. Let's go with this one. 29. Oh, yeah. 29. Another 20. What's a song you could listen to on repeat, if any come to mind?
Tom Waits' Downtown Train.
Right on. I love that.
Yeah.
Have you known that piece for a long time, or just?
Yeah, it literally changed. I loved music from early on. Also elementary school, I started with my first vinyl record was actually Bill Haley, and then Smokey, and you know, like, and Beatles, you know, and then it was in '85, I think, the Rain Dogs, the vinyl came out, and I didn't know. I mean, I was like, what, 16, 15, somewhere, you know, and but I was watching television, and after the mystery or whatever I watched at 10 o'clock at night, there was no MTV in Germany. It was public television, and the let's say the German CBC had one music video at 10:15 at night.
Right.
And as soon Downtown Train started, I was like in 90 degrees, listened to the end, and the next day I bought the vinyl.
Wow.
I was like, this is something I've never heard before, and that was his pop song, if you want. So, since then I listened to,
Nice.
Tom Waits. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, just like listening to something all the way through and being so captivated that you're just like, I need more of this.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think for myself, one of my favorite artists' names is Russ, and he has a song called Bet, and it's just like a super like pump-up song, and it just gets you motivated and ready to go for a run or something. I don't know. I just love it. So yeah,
I can see that.
yeah. I'll throw it back to you to pick our next piece.
You seem to know which one loses. I think this is ripped here. This is, oh, okay. The
There
middle.
you
Is
go.
it the middle? Was it like
Maybe.
this? 15.
15. Who is the most interesting person you have met and had a conversation with?
José Oliver is a German poet. And I had I didn't know him, so I had a writer's residency in southern Germany in the Black Forest, where he's very involved. And to hear and speak and see the life of a really outstanding German poet. He won all German language awards that you can look up, and then seeing the Mensch in him, and it was amazing. And it's nice to call a guy like that your friend.
Beautiful. Most interesting person I've met. Goodness. I don't know, like, I don't know if this is on brand for the question, but like my high school teacher turned mentor, I don't know, they were just fascinating, and I feel like I owe a lot of what I do now to them, and so I would find them very interesting. So that's who comes to mind for me.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah. No, good teachers are amazing.
Yeah, very valuable to have. Okay, let's see what else we get. Oh. Oh my gosh. Okay, we got it. 25. What do you wish you had more of?
More. More of. It's a philosophical question,
right?
It's like, I feel like, I'm 50, I'm fairly healthy. I almost want to see like more youth. You can't go back. I'm more. Okay, let's go down a little bit more basic. Let's say like I would like to have more things in walking distance in Lethbridge, like a forest, a pub, a cafe, a little like people where I'm used to walk and meet people at the traffic stop by foot, and that's where I come from. I'm from Germany, and it's not spectacular place. It's just like if you're not buying a fridge, you walk and shop, and you meet the older neighbor, the youngers, and if you want to have a cafe, you might meet somebody there, and that's not, you don't have to go, and you don't have to make a date with somebody. You run into each other.
Right.
So those more social, urban environment.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, that's super insightful. And I think for myself, I would actually kind of echo a part of that, which is just, like connection. And just being able to connect with people, and it maybe not being so formal. And maybe that's something I should work on, trying to cultivate that in some way, shape, or form. So maybe we can do it together. Yeah. Awesome. I think that is all the time we have for this segment.
Still standing.
So, it's still standing, so good for us. And this has been On Location in Lethbridge at CASA. I'm Daniel.
Thorsten.
And we'll be right back. Hello and welcome to On Location in Lethbridge at CASA. I'm Daniel. Awesome. Thank you for going along with us in the mini games. It was lovely to get insights into your preferences. And yeah, I'm super excited to do our interview with you. So yeah, I think we'll maybe just start right at the beginning, where you were born and what that part of your life was like.
Okay, so I was born in Germany in a city called Solingen. As far as I remember, it's Quentin Tarantino mentions that too, because it's a city of blades where all the scissors and blades in the past came from.
Okay.
So when I was born, during the time that was when a steel town like that was on the way down economically. So it was on the rougher side. My elementary school didn't have a name. That I know my friends said, what, did you grow up in the Bronx or something? It's like, no, that they just didn't have a name. And how was it, like one of those images that are speaking volumes is next to the school was actually a scissor factory. And they are there since 100 years. So if you make scissors, let's say every 5th print of a scissor is garbage, so they throw them out. So, and that's where we met, on those scissor hills that were tossed out. Yeah, so that was where our gang in the 3rd grade, 4th grade met, and that's how I grew up. I grew up, what is also different, definitely nowadays, is in a 3-bedroom, you would say. I grew up with my grandparents, my mom, and my uncle for 12 years, and it was under the roof in the 4th floor without an elevator, and the washroom was a staircase down, and the bathtub was in the kitchen. So like, lots of coal, heated by coal, and I didn't have my own room, and I could play my fantasy.
Interesting. And how do you feel that has like impacted your artistic journey, do you think?
I think I mean, there was a lot of blue collar, attitude, and that's what colleagues and peers told me, that I'm a worker, and I used to, especially in German, I worked on my language on a daily basis, on purpose, right? I read certain things to polish, to my tools, basically, to sharpen my tools, and also to like the friends in Germany I had, they were blue collar, university. The person is what matters, the character.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and yeah, like I'm a bit curious about that, because I think blue collar upbringing maybe has certain connotations, both good and bad. So I'm curious, like, what do you think were some of the good things you got out of like that?
I think it's definitely the working aspect, to not to be opposed to work itself. Like if my grandfather, for example, said, if you don't like it, don't do it. Then doing it shabby, and you're not happy, the boss is not happy. It's not always that easy, if you make ends meet, but in general that is attainable, should be attainable for anybody. And I never expected that things just getting handed to me, like that barely happened. It's like, yeah. So.
Yeah. And I guess I'm curious, like, what is like the earliest point at which you kind of found something creative to do? Maybe, yeah, especially in that context. Was it early, or?
I definitely like the storytelling. I would say spans definitely into my early childhood. The way I played, for me, it was not the, let's say, flick, 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 and the game is over, whatever that might be. It was more like a world building or story building, in the sense of, an example would be like, so I shared my room with my mom, right? There was not more space, and she had, I think it's called a Murphy bed. Is that when it comes down? Yeah. So the groove in the carpet where I knew the leg was, that was the border where underneath I could build the city by Playmobil or Lego, right? And that could be there for a week or two. That was important for me, because then I played the whole thing through. And the connection is so close to my storytelling. So I read already a lot, and always above grade, I punched up always. And not always great stuff, like Pulp Fiction novels and stuff, but in elementary school.
Yeah.
So, but by the time I went to school, and it was a certain day where I say like, yeah, that's the end of childhood. It's like, you know, if you're my buddy back then, you would say, hey, so what did you do yesterday? And I'm like, yeah, you know, Playmobil. And you're like, you know, it's getting embarrassing. You know, and I was like, going home little, you know, what am I going to do now? And I think I literally the next day I started writing.
Wow.
That's how it started, yeah.
Yeah.
When playing stopped.
Yeah. But in a way, the playing continued, but in a different medium, a different format.
Yes, yeah. I definitely, I like that Sir Bernard Shaw quote, like, we're not stopping playing because we're getting old because we stop playing. I like that.
Nice. And yeah, like what came next? Like your writing journey, was it mostly a solo venture at that period of your life?
It would be middle school now here, where I then, for example, showed a little short story a friend, you know, and they gave me grades.
As you do.
Yeah. And I mean, a short story, I must say that I wrote a whole school, what is it, like 32 pages or whatever. So that's, you know, if you were supposed to write an essay, it was like more than a page. How should I do this, right, at that age? But if it's my story, I'm in a zone, it didn't matter. So I think that almost counts like a novel for that age. So I kept writing those stories. And then I ventured into poetry in a certain age, right, 15, 16 maybe. And then I also looked up, I found Charles Bukowski, who was more accessible, not like this high level, kind of working class poetry, if you want. So,
right.
So, and okay, there are those people too. And then I found the beatniks, like Jack Kerouac, and that was a big eye opener that there were people that kind of ticked how I ticked. Right?
Yeah. And I guess I'm also curious, just because you're so descriptive in these things of like, where would you write? Like, I don't know, like, was it at home or did you like escape and get somewhere else that you would...
First it was, so by the time middle school, we moved to Leverkusen. That's a different city. It's like, I think 14 kilometers away, what is nothing.
Right.
But it was moving from, I don't know, what has a bad name, Cleveland or to Wellville.
Okay.
It was ridiculous. For me as a child, I was like, this is how people live, yeah. So anyway, I had an own room, for example, and you weren't scared of everybody that was older than you, literally. So I wrote at home. Yeah, I had the piece in the afternoon. You know, mom was at work, so I was alone in there and could just do my thing instead of homework. What do you have to do?
The sacrifices you gotta make. Yeah.
Priorities.
Yeah. Nice. And so you were kind of writing basically novels at an early age, and then kind of dipping your toes into poetry. What came next?
Yeah. So an inciting incident, is that the word?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
It was. I mentioned that briefly. So I read a lot. I didn't have a lot of money. I went to a secondhand bookstore, and the owner asked me if I write, and of course I said no first, you know, and then she said, and I said, some poetry, you know, and then she asked me, do you want to do a reading here? And I said no again. It's almost a classic hero journey story, right? But she was persistent and said, like, I invite 5 friends, not more. We have 2 bottles of wine. You do a reading. Okay, did the reading. I was super nervous. I had it on the paper, my first poem, and I was so nervous that my hands were wet. It glued around my fingers. I remember like taking it off, it ripped. It's like, wow. But inside, the feedback I got from these definitely adults, I mean, I was a young adult, like 18 maybe, felt so good and was so encouraging that I ventured further into those things, especially then live going, and that was before open mic was a thing. So I just asked in a pub, in a cafe, I also like, there are those things. So I always had poetry on me that I wrote maybe for a friend or something.
Yeah.
And I remember on the way home once, it's always one of my favorite little tiny stories, or was like, I just thought, one more beer, right? It's in the middle of the night, but the only pub that's open is what we call a pensioner's grave. A pension grave where the pensioners hang and just drink away there. So not like the youth crowd. There are lots of pubs in Germany, and it's almost like every,
Yeah.
So I just went in there and there were like 10, and I was by far the youngest, by far. I didn't belong there at all, but they were like, so are you, young man? And I was like, I'd say, nobody said a word. Do you want to hear a poem? And they were all like, sure. Nobody ever, this was not the normal crowd. But then the oldest guy, he then actually came over. He said, I will never forget this. I wish this would happen more often. It's I by then I was already once in Ireland, and I experienced this, like going in a pub and live music, like almost like, they call it wasn't open mic either, it's just what they do. So, and I kind of, to bring that back, everybody loves this connection.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. What else can you tell me about? Like, were there any other examples that come to mind as far as?
So it was funny. So I did this, and a friend of mine did this, and then we started self-publishing. I had a magazine that you couldn't call it like this anymore. It called The Cultural Terrorist.
Okay,
I had a big, like, cartoon bomb on the front, and every issue, what's it called? The thread that is.
I forget what it's called also, but I can see it in my brain. Yeah.
Got shorter. Right?
Okay,
so it never exploded, but I didn't get that. But we were like, we came across other people in Germany that did also those silly things. And there was a independent book fair, you would say. It was close by Frankfurt. It wasn't the Frankfurt Book Fair. And we went there, and it was literally, so you had, first you saw like these art prints. And we were like, oh God, these are not our. And then we walked through that big tent, it was a huge tent, walked on the other side, and there were people like you and me sitting there with Xeroxed magazines, and everybody, beer on the table. And I told Chaka, and we were like, hey, what do you read? They read also Kerouac, they listened to Tom Waits. I exaggerate, but there was this like 20 people, or 15, 16, and the one guy said, where do you sleep? And we slept in a wine hill in the car, like my buddy and me. And he said, like, no, you all come to me. I have a house, the house is empty, my parents gone or whatever. And so we stayed there. Now this is very important, because then the guys from Berlin said, this is so cool, and we talked all night till 6 in the morning, right? Like strangers, but definitely connected. And they said, you know what? We should do a festival. Like everybody had readings in their own towns, but not like, connected.
Yeah.
So the Berlin guys started a festival, and because the journalist was asking, so what kind of literature is it? And they were like, okay, it's not beat literature because that's taken, right? It's social beat. So they call it social beat. We're all like, yeah, cool, social beat, that's it, right? And it caught on so much that it was on the front page in the Berlin newspapers. Every club was full. It was hilarious, and with that bust, we got back to our cities and invited each other and got like $100 and free beer, sort of thing. But what you learned were your chops on stage, right? When you bomb or not, because it's not your buddies anymore. And so that was, and I read in Berlin, for example, then in the occupied house, right? The cops were there and the windows were open there if you had bail. And so it forms your stage presence and what makes you nervous in case somebody speaks and stuff. So, but later there were then also doctor theses written about that movement. We did that for 5 years, and then there were social beat bands, visual artists and stuff, and then we said like, okay, this is getting commercial.
And then you moved on.
Yeah.
And how old were you at that point?
That was in my 20s.
Yeah,
mid-20s, yeah.
Wow.
Early mid-20s, yeah.
And I love that sense of like independence throughout that, like making the work yourselves, it seemed like, right?
Yeah, it was, so we started with, photocopy and kneeling on the ground, like stapling stuff together. And then I had a couple of readings, and I had like $1,000. And I was like, I want to print a book, you know, how much is that? And I was like, 5,000. I'm like, ugh. So, same lady that had my first reading, I told her about it, and she's like, you know, I know a guy who knows a guy in Czech, and he just got a printing press. I see if I can phone him. Her husband is Polish, and their old farmhouse is close to the Czech border. So next week she was like, you know, he said he would print you 400 books for 900 Deutschmarks. I'm like, yes, you know. So I sent him the stuff. This is before internet, right? Like you sent the stuff to Czech, into the Pampa, like really into the Carpathian Mountains. And then it came, yeah, you can pick it up, bring the cash. And this is now important, right? So we drive over there. My buddy drives. He has this beaten Suzuki or whatever, like tiny car. We drive over there, get lost. Long story short, we meet the guy. There are the boxes. I open. Yeah. Okay. And here's the $900. He grabs the $900. Okay, bye. Walks off. I'm like, okay, we can go, I guess. You know, we had the books. We drive to the border, right? So that was obviously, this was under the table, right?
Yes.
Next story, border patrol. The Czechs, like the German guy. Now you have to imagine, like, my hair was here.
Okay.
My buddy was a heavy metal, like Slayer, and like we looked kind of in the car coming from the East Bloc that was hanging in the back like this because of the books. And it was a chubby, like German custom officer. He like, open the trunk, boys, and open the trunk, and the boxes, right? And he's like, what's in there? It's like, it's my book. He's like, open that, and that. Now I open that, and that. And at this point, I always say, if I pay for my own book, poetry collection, I put myself on the front cover. So that was me like standing there. He's looking at the book, he's looking at me. Okay, obviously this is true. He says like, okay, where are the papers? I'm like, no papers. He's like, oh, close the trunk and drive.
Yeah, right. Oh.
Because he saw worse, right? He saw worse at the border. We were obviously chuckleheads that printed a book under the table. So this was literature smuggle in the 20th century. Wow. And there was then later an article about that drawn out event. So. Oh
my gosh, I love the serendipitous connections and just like going with the flow.
Yeah. I think that is important. Like I always say, life is a little mix between chess and poker. Mm-hmm. If you have a streak, you should risk a little more, and sometimes you should sit down and just wait it out.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So yeah, that was like your 20s, some point in your 20s, and like what came next, and like where in the story did you kind of make your way to Canada, and I believe Calgary, right?
Yeah. So. So I did actually try a 9-to-5 job before as well, very early on, because, you know, from working background, I did not know anybody in university. I did not know anybody self-employed. That's what you do, right? Right. But it didn't work for me. After 1.5 years, I was like, you know, something's wrong, but I'm also like, I finished what I start. So I finished what I start. After 3 years, I said, I can't, so I stopped the job and did social work instead of going to the army, and tried what I'm going to do, right? And I was like, I can go to university. So I tried university. I tried first for filmmaking, but my grades were too bad. And I said, teacher, no. Now, many people ask me like, wow, German language arts? You know, and with the experience I had at school, that's the only thing I didn't want to study. I did not want to write what other people want to hear. So that was just, at that point, that was already established. So I was like, what can I? So I had an advisor, I would say. And I'm like, okay, if not teacher, if not, what can I study? So if I look at you and geography, I'm like, I take geography. So that's, of course, the greatest way to start a university degree. But anyway, so I did it, right? And of course, like after 2 or 3 semesters, I was at the point where I was before with not knowing. So doing my job was a legal job, so very brain-oriented, what meant at the end of the day, I didn't want to write. I didn't want to see a pen. So at the university, 2-3 semesters in, so I needed to study and I needed a job. And all of a sudden became clear I wouldn't be able to write anymore. And then it made sense why I quit the job. And then I took a week. I was like, I don't know, 23, 24, I don't know now. I took a week and just thought. And I was like, that's when I made draw the conclusion, I will work to buy myself time to write for the rest of my life. Knowing that I probably will never, ever live of it. That was totally clear, you know, but I was like, I need it. Without it, I'm a different person. I don't like that person. I need to write or storytell in any form or shape. So, yeah, and then came all that. How did I come to Canada? So I had jobs, exactly. So I got these other jobs. I worked in the CD department back then, and then I also, and that is, it takes part. I was allergic against grass, when grass blooms, to the point I got really bad sick, like asthma. So I got these shots, allergy shots. So, and I got them every week, 5 years, 8 years. I asked the doctor, 10 years. I'm like, how long? It's like, yeah, forever. It's like, no, what? And he says, just don't be here those 2 months. So what I did then, I always worked. I could afford, that's always open. I could afford not to have a car where I lived. That saves a lot of money, as everybody knows. So instead of having a car, I traveled. I traveled there, I traveled here, and then the year one came and I was like, okay, now I try the 3rd time to go to the US. And my colleague at the CD store, he was in Canada before, and he said, and I wanted to go to Seattle and go down to San Francisco. And he says, Seattle? Why don't you go to Vancouver? I'm like, why would I? I'm sitting here right now, right? I'm married to a Canadian with 3 kids, you know. And he said, well, you can say you've been to Canada and the dollar is cheaper. That is why I came to Canada. So I touched down in Vancouver and I jumped now over the custom offers experience there. But the first 3 days were so awesome that I was like, I'm not going south, I go north. And then I traveled 5 weeks camping, backpacking, up Sunshine Coast, Vancouver Island, come to Victoria. And I must say, like, the people, it was party time. I was like, wow, what a city, and many young people and celebrating. I'm like, this is awesome. On a Friday or whatever, I'm like, this is great. This is my city. This is the best ever, you know. So in the youth hostel, I was like, I love it here. This is like, they're so awesome. Everybody looks at me, and then it's like, oh, it's Canada Day, right? It's like, I didn't even know, because I thought this was all normal. Everybody drinking in the street, right? I'm like, oh, this is my place. So, and in that youth hostel, I met my wife. She was there from Calgary. Yeah, so then I stayed.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. I'm sure there's so many more stories that you could tell us about that first experience in Canada. But how long were you here for? And then you also went back, right?
Yeah. So the other story is actually 10 years later, I sold that as a novel that is traditionally published. What happened in those first 5 weeks?
Yeah.
After the 3 days, I start journaling, what I never do. After the 5 weeks, I sent home 280 pages that I wrote just in the morning from all the people I met, from this crazy things. Whatever. So so after I met Marcia, so we were like, she still had like 2 days at the youth hostel, so we hung out, and then it's like, what now, right? And I had, my flight back was in 4 weeks from San Francisco. And then it's like, you can come to Calgary. It's like, I never went to Calgary. I didn't even. So I was like, okay. So I followed her to Calgary. So that our joke is always like, we always lived under the same, we never dated, we lived under the same roof from day one, right?
Right.
So I stayed there for 4 weeks. And then it was again, what do we do now? It's like, she said, I have a good job in Calgary. And I'm like, author without success, I think I can try something, you know. It's like, yeah, okay, let's try in Calgary, right? Like, so I just flew back, quit the job. They had a good chuckle, and came to Calgary, where I stayed a year. and then the job wasn't so great anymore, and we were like, we're ready to marry, and we said, let's marry in Germany. So she sees all my white horses and the farm that I told her I had. No, so, you know, and where I'm from and stuff. So we did that, and then we said, let's move where we met. We moved to Victoria. To be precise, it was Esquimalt. That's the community north of it. Very nice. Had a good time. 4 years in, our first son was born there. I worked for the Greater Victoria Art Gallery, what I really, really liked, but I needed more hours. You know, we wanted to have a bigger family, and then that was a decision to say, I have more chances in Germany. We also wanted that if it's possible for us, that Marcia can stay with the little child home. That was, we talked about that. So that's what we did, and we moved for 10 years and 2 more children to Germany. So, and then it was like, Marcia, I would like to go back, and then the school system also kicked in for our boys, and that was then my thing. It is, I have to explain that Germany still has the 3-tier system, what means like after 4th grade you go lower, middle or higher tier. And as a boy in 4th grade, developmentally you're half a year behind girls. If you're bilingual, what our boys were, you're more than a year behind girls. So the first boy went to middle, and the second was supposed to go to lower tier. He's now at university here, right? And I was like, I'm not raising decent boys and let them not getting the education that they deserve. From then on, that was my personal decision. And that's when we looked like, where should we move? And Victoria, I'm like, oh, that's a little expensive now. Esquimalt was like, the houses were still 200,000, right? Like when we were living there. We had a 1-bedroom apartment for $500 with ocean view. I think this is not there anymore, right? Like from what So that, we found that out. Calgary was too expensive, and then we had, the last round was either Charlottetown or Lethbridge, and we decided then on Lethbridge, not least because they had CASA, a city that that puts a foot down for the arts, and we are both like that. That I would work here one day, or sit here for an interview. That was not in the picture, but that's how that came. And during the time, what is important for the writing part? So in Victoria, I had the chance to join the filmmakers. That's where I learned my chops with filmmaking. Not only that, I learned the craft of storytelling structure. I did not do this in Germany. So by the time I moved back, I came with that knowledge. I also learned editing, very important for me for writing as well, to cut the scene whenever when it's best. And I always said in every interview that I'm actually a Canadian storyteller and a German author because of that background. And I would have not, without that knowledge, being published in Germany. I'm 100% sure. And then I became traditionally published during those 10 years and nominated Best German Debut and those things.
And like I'm very curious about what did it mean to be nominated and be winning awards in 2 different countries, because eventually you have been the recipient of various Canadian grants and awards, right? So
it's, I mean, that is it's pretty amazing. And what I just found out, and that was also in Victoria, I started already like dabbling in grants, but I didn't get one. And then it was Rick Raxling, the filmmaker. He was here at the SAIC a couple of years ago, older gentleman now. He does experimental short films on film, and he draws with oil on each frame. So it very, So, and he said, you have to apply for every grant. Don't expect to get it. Don't expect to get it for your best project. But it is one leg we're standing on. And I'm preaching that here to the younger artists, like, do that every time you can. It's there. It's like, no, you don't get it. Maybe not for your heartfelt project, but you can do it with the other one, maybe. In Germany, it was like, once I was in the loop, they foster you, right? Like if you get a grant, the other people look at that project differently. You know, you get to know, it's networking, you get to know people, connection is in there as well. I also didn't get, not every grant, or I didn't won the award for best German debut, right? But that's just what it is. But it brought me, for example, on the radar of for other things.
Interesting. One that really stood out to me was the literature tour in Switzerland. What can you tell me about that? Just because I found that fascinating.
Yeah, no. So the other leg I was standing on as an artist, as a professional artist, was readings, like live performances. Now I came, and I have to say, so when I was signed by one of the big publishing houses, I got assigned an agent that for PR, and I very fast found out she was super connected, and I was like, "Can you do that for readings?" And she's like, "No, I don't do that for readings." And so I'm like, 15%? It's like, no, I don't do that. She hasn't seen me reading at the point, right? We just prior to the publication of Joyride Ost was my first novel that was also nominated and won awards. And the presentation was at the Leipzig Book Fair. So it's, I think, the third biggest in Europe or whatever. It's a big, great. And it was in the hall number 1. They have a stage, let's say like this, and then they have like, let's say 40, 60 chairs, and the rest is fair, book fair, right? Books, people streaming by, you know, like the, you know, so.
It's like Canada Day all over again.
Yeah, exactly. No, for me it was like, you know, and they were like, oh, you know, and they were all there. So the bosses of the publishing house, my agent, other publishing houses. So I sat down, I had like 20 minutes. After 10 minutes, the fire department had to come to clear the alleys. I had to interrupt the reading.
Right.
After 20 minutes, like more than the 60 people were applauding. That's all I'm saying. The first person that runs to me was that agent and said, "I take you under contract. I've never seen this."
Right.
And that's when we go back to what I said before, where I read, what shaped me, and not knowing, but I can look up when I have paper on me. I still can do this, and I'm just in the zone. And then that's how I get to that, got me on reading tours throughout Europe. So I read on German schools between Denmark, Holland, Italy, and also twice on cruise ships, where she got me, and I did workshops. And if there's ever an honest audience, it's teenagers.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Nice.
You know, like even reading at schools, I mentioned now, to tie back into this lower, middle, and higher tier, I have colleagues that don't read on the lower tier because it's difficult. But those were my neighbors where I grew up.
Yeah.
That's, you know, second language German, or and kids came up to me, I remember that many times, and especially in those schools, "Your novel was the first one I read to the end." Wow. And I said that was my first literary award, when the first boy came up to say, because they never forget that.
Wow, that's super super insightful, and that sounds like an amazing experience too, to have that feedback.
Yeah.
I could listen to all day. I know we're pretty much at the end. Our last question that we try and ask people is just, how has being creative impacted your everyday life, do you feel?
I think it keeps your mind open for new things. Being at research for the next novel or project, I always like to do research for each project, because often from details, ideas come. You know, and in life, it's like, well, I might just try. Let's say I'm not a big handyman, but Canada gives me the chance with 2x4s to actually build like a little shelf on my desk at home. And I'd rather do that. And it's not nice, but it's done, and it works. So I'm still open to try new things. In my work, for example, people also say like that looked like a dance. You know, sometimes it's like you can do things nicely or elegantly. You know, and elegant is already going towards art. You know, or there are always two ways to do things and to approach life.
So staying open. I think that's
Yeah.
a wonderful sentiment to end on. So thank you so much for your stories and insights and experiences.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
This has been On Location in Lethbridge at CASA. I'm Daniel. This is
Thorsten, thank you.
and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to On Location in Lethbridge here at CASA. I'm Michael.
I'm Daniel, and this is
Thorsten.
Yeah, Thorsten, so I've genuinely enjoyed both your segments with Daniel. Getting to know you a little bit at the beginning, and especially your journey as a writer. And yeah, seems like you've had many adventures. I'm sure you guys could have talked for hours and hours. Yeah. But yeah, this is the showcase portion of the program, and yeah, we like to show off the work a bit as much as we can, and talk more about maybe the process of the writing and things like that. So yeah, so we're going to talk about a couple of your books. The first one is Lethbridge, 2112. Yeah, tell me about that book.
Yeah, so that is actually the book that was the longest in the making. It takes me at least 2 years before I start a novel from idea, but this one took about 15, 16 years before I started it. Originally, it was an idea taking place in Berlin. It's a dystopian future novel in the year 2112, but in between we moved to Lethbridge, and I just got intrigued by the geography, and I like to know really what I'm writing about, and or the location, for example. And a few years in, I was like, you know what, I shift this to Lethbridge, and yeah, so that's why Lethbridge got the hopefully honor to be featured that way.
Yeah. I was curious why it was themed Lethbridge, so
yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe if you can give kind of a brief overview of the story.
So yeah, it It derives from that idea that I had like, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 years ago, where, I don't know, I was, you have light ideas, you have dark ideas. I wrote one novel about school shooting before there were novels like that. So I did research. That wasn't nice research, right? Like, it's like you can do better stuff. And here it was an idea where at one point I just was like thinking, why are there so many people, it's a simple question, not a simple question, but like, why do people take their own lives? So the next question is, why so many? And then if it's so, does society really does everything possible to avoid that? And then the dystopian idea was, what if there's a society that actually promotes it? So, and that was like, that lingered. And it wasn't like the next year I had okay, who does it, who's a narrator, who's the protagonist? So this all built up. And it was a long research, being into psychology, societal decisions, and what the story is. And then it is then Arthur is the protagonist. He is of no age. That was another thing that also came during this long process of planning. Where I was like, no, this should be read between 16 and 80, like it's an ageless character, but his brother is sick, and it comes up if he could help him, what is life worth and all that, and they offer him this, if you do this, then your younger brother can still live, those things. And it was interesting. But it is, and people told me already that read the book, it is okay to laugh. I'm like, yeah. It's not like an inherent dark story. It's he also, there comes a girl in so she's protesting against that system, and of course they look at each other. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I assume because it's a dystopian novel that's not a good thing if people are promoting this suicides, I guess, right?
Yeah, no, and there are many ideas then coming together. It's just one of those. It not necessarily is it the main story? Well, it's a society that I then built on that. Mm-hmm. It's also in the question, what society would have the motivation that is implemented that way, and where does it start? Where does it end? More recent, in those 15 years, came also medical assisted dying, MAID, right? So that was then started. So this bleeds in there too, the discussion. It's like, what is okay, what not? It's not I'm taking sides. I'm just a jester that asks questions. Munch is now the newest author that got okayed for MAID. The children book author, in Canada. Oh, yeah, so and that was just like the other day. And it's like, yeah, so I just felt like the time was ripe to ask a couple of more questions, or, the task of an artist.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So the idea is to get the reader thinking a bit about that and maybe ask their own questions. Yeah.
In an entertaining, futuristic setting of Lethbridge was, I think, 14 million people.
Wow. So we've grown.
Yeah. And it rains all day.
Oh.
And color is too expensive, so everything's black and white.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Those all little puzzle pieces that made it interesting.
Yeah, and then I guess like your original concept was in Berlin. Mm-hmm. Like how did that change when you decided eventually like, okay, it's going to be in Lethbridge?
It got definitely more geographic. For example, like the coolies are definitely, one reader actually pointed that out, that he liked that segment the most, for example. I don't want to take anything back. It also takes, there are these rumors that there are like more tunnels under Lethbridge, so I like to incorporate also like rumors in those things. Yeah, there are, and they are used by some people, and so yeah, it was really like I embraced it fully. I think actually Berlin wouldn't have given me so many opportunities visually, like with coulees and tunnels, for example. Very,
Sure, the
Yeah.
landscape.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and did the location, like, did that change how the story develops at all?
Yeah, no, like that was then, we were here for quite some years, and then I applied for a grant for the Alberta Foundation for the Arts, and I got it with a second application, and that made me writing this book in peace, because our kids were still younger, so at home I didn't have that peace, and I could have a place where I could go and write. That was really important.
Nice, yeah. And so, yeah, you had that initial idea like 16 years ago, and you've gotten this grant. Like, yeah, I guess, like, for you, what's that process like? Like, how long would it take you to write the first book?
The first book, yeah, that was always, so I was used to work and write, right? Either I worked half-time and had half day to write, or I worked full-time for, let's say, 6 months, and then I had 3 months off. And so once for example, I mentioned the lady before from the second-hand bookstore, and there was another thing where I'm like, after I did my first readings and short stories and and then we became sort of friends, right? Like, and I said like, oh, I could now write a novel, but I can't book a hotel or whatever. So, and at home, like, there's so much going on. And I mean, in my early 20s, there were lots of parties, and there's a strong current that drags you away from these projects. And she said, my husband is Polish, right? Yeah, they have that old family farm in the Carpathian Mountains. It's empty, nobody's there. There is no water, no electricity. The next person is 6 kilometers away. You want to go there? I'm like, how much? She's like, for free? I'm like, yeah, in July, right? It's like, I do this. This is awesome. So here's the key. So a week later, and she gave me a key that was like a castle it was ridiculous, right? I'm like, okay. Again, it was before internet. So she drew me a map. And it was literally like, this is Berlin, this is Krakow, and scribbled down and there. And I'm like, okay. So I slept at the gas station in my car, then crossed okay, here, this way, it gets emptier and emptier, just fields, and then this must be it. Let's see if the key, there's no phone, that was before smartphone, there was an old hay barn and a very small, maximum the size of the room the house was, right? It was an old, like 300-400-year-old. So we, right? Alone in the world, right? So yeah, and I stayed there a couple of weeks, had other great, so alone, and wrote the novel with candle light a little bit, because I just could bring so many candles, and no electricity, and the water I had to pull from a well, and then in a barrel that you pull behind you. And there was I had I always mention that because I had a dream experience there that I didn't expect, and I didn't, unfortunately. That's the only time I regret that I finished what I start. I should have jumped on the dream experiences and write about that. I did not. And that was actually an artistic mistake, because I thought I could recreate that. But I talked to psychologists and dream experts about that. And basically what I did was so after 3-4 days, I dreamt like I never dreamt before. I woke up out of breath, fulfilled. I remembered everything. I think I did research in English as well. Some people refer to lucid dreaming, but I would even top that, right? So psychologists were then, and this was now then every night. So, and it was I was explained to me, it was because usually what we dream is what we experience during the day, the brain molds it over. So I didn't experience anything during the day, nothing. After 3 days, it was empty. One was saying, basically you were in solitary confinement. That is, you know, and yeah, so this went on for like 12 days in a row. So it was literally after 3 days, I was looking forward to go to sleep. And it was just ridiculous. And I swear, so on the 13th, 12th night, it was the nightmare. It was the exact opposite. And I still get goosebumps. So, and then I just finished up the novel, although the next day was awesome again. Not nothing. It was again this awesome. After like a little bit more than 2 weeks, I left. But that was the reason. The nightmare was, I don't want to have this in my life again, right? That's how bad it was. So I got out, had my novel, but this story stays with me, and I wanted to, so I contacted the university in Frankfurt because they had the next dream expert. He connected me with a guy, I think it was Austria, Vienna, the European Dream Institute, blah, blah, blah. We're talking now again, this is 30 years ago, right? He will phone you back, stay by the phone. I'm like, okay. So he told him what I told him. And the guy phones back. There's this guy from Austria, he says, what did you do? I'm like, you must get people that do that. I'm like, no, not for money, nobody does that. It's like, I wish you could have hooked me up because I want to know what was going on, right? And he's like, oh, maybe we do that. If you want to do that, you know, we even pay you to do that. I'm like, awesome, right? Like, I can write my next novel. So, but then life comes in between, and I got offered a job as a cultural journalist. And I was like, okay, not now, but I have holiday in a year, and then of course, then you fall in love, and you fall out of love, and the next job, and it never happened, and I never ever had a dream experience like, and there were no drugs involved, for example. I had nothing, right? This was, yeah, the only explanation, that's what they have. In the beginning, what I told them, the one guy said Leonardo da Vinci, was it that guy? He did scribble something like that down. That's the only written thing they have. I said like, no, this was everything plus. So that is the only time I'm not an esoteric person, although I sound now like, but that was like, yeah, there's something more out there, and I just live with that.
Yeah, wow, that's quite the experience.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah, I'm not sure where I want to go after that. It's quite the journey.
Yeah, you know, and then here, of course, then I did read, then I heard about Vision Quest, those, and that was also then, but it wasn't like I had a message. I wasn't like, this is my, you know, it was just everything entertainment.
Okay, yeah.
So.
Wow, yeah, it's amazing, yeah. Like, did any of those experiences or anything like that like make it into this book?
Into that, usually there is something with dream references in there, because like it's just something I carry around with me, and I feel like it could be more, or it was, I think, in the past more important than it is now in our lives, because we are really flooded by so many words, sounds, images, and I'm pretty sure like in the older times that was different, and people must have had that more often, or, you know, experience that. Just nobody talked about it because it was like, that's normal.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting, yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, I know we are running a bit short on our time here. Yeah, I guess, was there anything else you wanted to say about this book? It is like a trilogy, right?
Yeah, so the second book is out now. It's called The Annual Sacrifice of the Richest Man. Also takes place in Lethbridge. It's in the year 2071. So it's not quite 40 million, it's still smaller. And it's a story about a young couple that just wants to move together and doesn't have the money. A family that needs surgery for their kid that don't have the money, and the richest man in Lethbridge, who I made up, so in case there is somebody, it's a made up person,
Sure.
Who tries not to be sacrificed that year. Because, yeah, and they have the chance over an app to spread the wealth to to not be that person. So and that is kind of a milieu study from the future. It's a dystopian novel, but just for the top 1%.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds really fascinating. I'd love to read that book as well. Yeah. I'm curious. I'm sure people ask you this, but like with the years going backwards, from, 112 to 70 to 30. What was the reason for doing that?
It was like, so I didn't have a trilogy in mind when I wrote that, and I never thought about like grouping. That's maybe better, grouping novels or stories. It was always, this stands alone by itself. The sacrifice of the richest man stands also by himself. What's connected is the setting and kind of a linear change from the city to there, right? So this was definitely further in the future. It rains 24/7 here, and 2071, it doesn't yet. It shows a little bit. There are hints, like it's December and it's no snow, and like those. So you see elements, but you don't need to read in order. It's the location.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I look forward to reading this and the other books as well. So it's been a real pleasure to talk to you about your work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Pleasure talking with you guys.
Yeah. Well, so this has been On Location here in Lethbridge at CASA. I'm Michael.
I'm Daniel, and this has been
Thorsten.
Thanks so much for watching.